purpose of this video is to show you how to use Google Slides to conduct an online collaborative activity. My name is Lindy Hockenberry. I'm a digital learning coach. I'm a facilitator and trainer of educational topics and a consultant in the education world. I'm also the founder of InTech Graded Professional Development. I am also an online student and an online teacher. I'm a Google for Education certified trainer and certified educator. In this video, you're going to learn how to identify one instructional strategy that you can use for online teaching. Specifically, that strategy is going to be how to utilize Google Slides to conduct an online collaborative activity. Let's begin by showing you a couple different examples of how you could use Google Slides to conduct an online collaborative activity. This first example is in an online course for educators, where educators are learning about Hapara tools. In this example, the students were to use a PD framework for 21st century learning and examine how that framework fits in with Hapara tools. They also had the choice of choosing a different framework if they felt that they had a framework that they wanted to align Hapara tools with. So if you look, you've got several different slides over on the left. Each slide is a different student, and then you can see how they have added their name to the slide to identify that that was their slide. So there's a name there, there's a name there, there's a name there, etc. So each slide is for a different student. And then the activity was to take and align Hapara tools to a framework and make it as visual or illustrative as possible. The second example is also from an online course for educators. And in this example, the educators were to identify a slide. So you can see there's a slide for each person where they can add their name. And then they were to use that slide to show how they could create digital workflow in their classroom. So the students would come in here, choose a slide, add their name, and then they have the whole slide in order to show how they would do digital workflow in their classroom. The great part about these collaborative activities using Google Slides is that each student has their own space to provide their own showing of understanding and learning, but then they can look at the other slides to see what other students have done. Now let's show you how you can create a collaborative activity in Google Slides. Step one is to go to slides.google.com, preferably in Google Chrome. Once you get to slides.google.com, you're going to click on Blank Slide to open up a new presentation. If you have a template that you would like to use, you can also open that template and work from it. But for now, I'm going to work from a blank slide, and I'm going to show you how you could duplicate the sample that I showed you about digital workflow. The first thing I do when I open up a new Google slide is I click up where it says Untitled Presentation, and I change the name. I'm going to change this to Digital Workflow. The next step is I always start with the first slide and use this as a title slide and a way to provide directions to my students on what they're going to do on this activity. So I can add a title, and then down here, I usually use this as a chance to add my instructions. So I can say either choose a slide, or I'll talk about this later, add a slide. And then step two, I would add the instructions on what the students will do there, etc. Okay, so now I have a nice title slide, gives them directions on what they want to do. Now I need to add the slides for each student. To do this is super simple. I can just right click on the slide and say New Slide. Now I can either leave the slides blank as is, or I can add some information like I did over on this sample where I added name, because I want to make sure that they added their name to their slide. So I can do that, or I can add name up here. I can leave this as is and give the instructions that each student has to add their own slide. If your students are very familiar with Google Slides, this is a great way to do it because it saves you just a little bit of time. And all students have to do is come in here, right click, and say New Slide, and then that becomes their slide where they can add their name. If you want to provide a slide per student ahead of time, a quick tip, excuse me, I'm going to delete that slide so we start over again. A good tip is if you use either Command or Control, depending upon if you're on a Mac or a PC, and then hit the D button. So I'm going to hit Command or Control D. It is going to automatically duplicate that slide each time I use that keyboard shortcut. So I can just keep doing that until I have one slide per student. Then the last step is to click on to share. I like to go to Get Shareable Link. Choose right here, say More, and then I choose anyone with the link. And then down here, I want to make sure to change this from Can View to Can Edit, because students need to be able to edit their individual slides. Then click on Save. And now I copy this link and I can provide that link to my students, and anyone can click on that link and add to and edit this presentation. So I would just give that link to my students and we are all set to do our collaborative activity. If you want, that is a very simple way to do this. I do have a couple more tips to add if you would like to have a couple different additional ways to do this. I'm going to delete these slides real quick and show you one other thing. Now, if I right click on this slide and go to Apply Layout, you can see that I have several different options of layouts to use. These layouts can be a really great way to provide a template for your students when doing an activity like this. I can have them choose a specific template. I can create my own template for them to use, or I can actually delete these formats that I don't want them to use and provide, say, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 layouts or templates for my students to use. And I do that all through the master slide. So if I click on View, go to Master, you can see here where all of those layouts live. Say if I don't want a layout, all I have to do is right click on it and say Delete Layout. And I can continue to do this, just deleting all of these layouts, etc., until I get down to only the ones that I need or want. I can also take and either edit a layout to be the way that I want. So for example, in this example, I would want to have name, or a text box, excuse me, right here. And then I actually don't even want a text box, because if you remember right, in the instructions for this activity, I wanted them to make their slide as visual or illustrative as possible. So I don't want them to have a text box. I want them to insert images and shapes, etc. So I'm just going to add a text box and a blank area. I'm going to keep these other layouts for now, and I'm going to go out of my master slide. And then when I'm here, all I have to do is right click, go to Apply Layout, change it to that layout that I set, which I already have going. I'm going to add name here, and you can see now I don't have any text box. I only have one text box for their name in the entire slide. And then all I have to do is that shortcut key again, Command or Control D. Oops, except for make sure I click on the slide. Command D, all the way down, and I can duplicate that slide, one slide per student. So that's one tip that you can use for a lot of different things when doing activities in Google Slides. One other tip is when I'm doing a collaborative activity like this, I make a rule that students are either not allowed to touch other students' slides, or they're only allowed to add comments to other students' slides. Meaning, say this is Johnny's slide. He adds his name, and he would go through and he would add his information to the slide. And then say Sally, since this is a collaborative activity, we want them to look at each other's information and learn more. She has a question about something that Johnny has. All she has to do is go Insert, Comment, and then Sally can add her question over here and click on Comment. And it adds this nice little box. It doesn't interfere with anything that Johnny has done on his slide, but then Johnny can see Sally's question. He can click on here, click on Reply, and he can reply to Sally's question here. So comments are a really great way to increase the collaboration in this collaborative activity. So that is how you can use Google Slides to conduct a collaborative activity in both your online classes and your face-to-face classes.